And hello, everyone. Welcome back into another edition of SEC Talk. It is our finale of this college football season. There's no SEC teams to talk about anymore because, well,
Football
all of them
talk.
have been pretty much eliminated. But we will get into the College Football National Championship. The game is just a couple of days away. It's going to be on Monday night, so definitely be tuned into that one. It'll be the Ohio State Buckeyes facing off against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who probably would have thought of that coming. I mean, the number 8 and number 7 seed in the playoff, but we will get to that. We'll also recap the playoff games, and then we'll do a little bit of NFL playoff picks since I know we don't have our other show. We're just going to do our picks here on this show. But before we get into this, Wade, how was your weekend?
Pretty good. I mean, I tuned in to the semifinals, which we'll talk about here on the show. I thought those were two really competitive games, and then caught a little bit of the NFL, but it kind of seemed like those games were pretty one-sided, minus the Buccaneers game against the Commanders. So definitely a lot of entertaining football. But I mean, this week's NFL slate has some matchups that honestly could be Super Bowls. So I'm very excited for that. And then, of course, like you said, the national championship game on Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you better enjoy the football while it's on your screen because college football only has one more game than the NFL is going to be heading into the divisional with the Super Bowl down there in New Orleans. So exciting times if you're a football fan. But we're now going to be shifting our gears here on SEC Talk to the spring sports, mainly basketball. The next show that you see us on here will be our March Madness selection picks, and hopefully we do better than we usually do here. But we will get into that and when the time comes. But for now, we're going to close out the season, do a little bit of review here at the end of the show of the 2024 season, mainly on the conference that we talked to the SEC. But before we get into that, if you have any questions about this season as a whole, feel free to leave us a comment. We will get to it at the end of the show after we talk about some hot topics that went around the conference this week, because there's a lot of news that happened, especially in the transfer portal and also declarations to the NFL draft. So let's get into the live action football, what happened on the field just a couple of days ago here. Number 7 Notre Dame versus number 6 Penn State in the Orange Bowl down there in Miami. Notre Dame ended up pulling off this one, a thrilling game against these two teams, 27-24 in favor of the Fighting Irish. If you really watch this was pretty much a tale of two halves. Penn State felt like they dominated, even though it was only 10-0. Probably should have been 17-0, and Drew Allar threw that ball right into Nick Singleton's hands, but that pass was a little bit behind him. But you got to give credit to Penn State's defense. They really came out strong. Notre Dame was dealing with some injuries. Jeremiah Love, you could see it throughout the game. He wasn't really 100%. Riley Leonard also suffered, not really concussion, but he did go out in that game. We saw the backup, and man, he shined on the drive that he had, giving those 3 points. And without those 3 points, Notre Dame, who knows if they would have won this game or not. So those 3 points were definitely crucial going to the half. It was only 10-3. A first half that really felt like Penn State was just going to walk away with this one and move on to national championship. But the first drive coming out, we see Riley Leonard and the offense stepped up to the field. They had a touchdown. It was 10-10. And then all of a sudden, it was like it was a defensive game, and it turned out it was just touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. It was a tie ball game, and then Notre Dame, with only like 30 seconds left, Mitch Jeter, he's been so clutch in the playoffs for Notre Dame. He had a field goal, and that was all she wrote, as Drew Allar threw an interception that definitely had a lot of people questioning that decision. You probably would have thought that Penn State, they on their first play, they ran it. They got 15 yards, and after that, they were trying to just get down the field, get to field goal range to try and win the game. Instead, they lost the game. So Notre Dame moves on to national championship for the first time since the 2012 season, and then that did not go so well for Notre Dame. So Wade, what are your overall takeaways? And you got to be impressed with how Notre Dame has been playing as of late.
Yeah, I mean, both of these teams we knew were going to bring it on defense, and we knew both quarterbacks were athletic, but kind of had some question marks about their ability to stretch the field. We figured both teams could run it, and all of that lived up to the truth. And unfortunately for Drew Allar, it was just that I guess his nemesis all season has been the turnover battle. And, he just got suckered into a bad decision there. Thought he saw somebody kind of breaking open across the middle, away from his momentum. Just not really a good throw to make in that situation. Maybe if you're trailing and you need to push the ball down the field, but at worst, Penn State should have been punting that football, towards the end of the game there. There was no need to be aggressive. I get that you were trying to win it in regulation, but it was only second down. Just really didn't make a lot of sense. And then kudos to Notre Dame for, being smart, but also aggressive when they got the ball back, because there was enough time on the clock for them to win it in overtime. And I don't know if they would have won. I mean, to win it in regulation, I don't know if they would have won this game had it gone to, extra time. And I think Penn State probably is the more talented team, but Notre Dame just kind of caught them at the end. And that's kind of been the story of it for them this playoff season. So kudos to them. I think Marcus Freeman had his guys ready to go. I know we'll have him ready to go against his alma mater in Ohio State. I think anything's possible with what they have on defense.
Yeah, absolutely. So good win for the Irish. Like I mentioned, they're going to be moving on to the national championship where they're going to face the winner of this game. This was the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. Number 8, Ohio State versus number 5, Texas. And the Buckeyes came away with a victory 28-14. And man, we got two really good semifinal games. Usually in the past, when we had the 4 team, it's usually like at least one blowout. This was phenomenal. Like we got through all the blowouts in the first couple of rounds of the playoff, and all 4 of these teams lived up to the billing. But Ohio State looked like early that they were just going to crush Texas like they did Oregon. They went down the field on their first drive. They scored a touchdown as they always did. Jeremiah Smith, only 1 catch in this game. So credit to Texas secondary. But I think that really changed the momentum. It was pretty much how Notre Dame flipped. They got that field goal before the half. Texas tied it up 7-7 with Jaden Blue. And then boom, after that, Trevion Henderson, we saw him get a 75-yard touchdown. It was in Ohio State was up 14-7. They got the ball back in the second half. Texas defense really was the MVP for this team because the offense and Quinn Ewers once again just did not do much. It was pretty much Jaden Blue getting the 2 touchdowns. It was a real route on both of the touchdowns. Really, you didn't see Isaiah Bond in this game. Matthew Golden was a wide receiver 1 for this team, and you saw Wisner get involved too, but you got to give credit to Ohio State. And the play that changed it all was Jack Sawyer, that strip sack when Texas was on. Had a couple of tries to really get this game back into really to tie the game. It was 21-14 at the time, and then they ran that toss play on the second down, and they lost 4 yards. And then after that, Quinn Ewers had the strip sack, and then Jack Sawyer picked it up for the scoop and score, and that was pretty much all she wrote. So our national championship is set, Ohio State and Notre Dame. Wade, since we're an SEC show, let's go ahead and focus on Texas season. How would you grade the Longhorns' first season here in the conference?
I think they lived up to my expectations of being in the conference championship and being in the Final Four. I mean, nobody doubted Ohio State coming into the season. They were a very popular championship pick. Now, this wasn't the route that we saw them getting there. But I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of losing to a very talented Buckeyes team.
Yeah.
I think maybe for Texas, the only thing that disappointed me was Quinn Ewers not making that next step up. I was very, very impressed with his performance last year in the college football playoff against Washington. They ended up losing that game, and you thought, okay, look, they got the quarterback, they got the defense, they're going to put it all together, and next year they're going to take that next step. And I guess you could say they did. They won a playoff game against Arizona State, but I don't feel like Ewers personally made that step up. I thought he was going to be a Heisman contender, but do keep in mind he was injured early on in the season, and that could have thrown off his flow a little bit. So who's to say? But overall, it was a good first year in the conference for Texas. I think they're here to stay. I think especially in this NIL era, they're going to always put together a competitive team And I think they fit very well in the SEC.
I think there's an argument that there's another player on this team that was a bigger disappointment. That was Isaiah Bond. He was pretty much, you didn't see him at all. Like, he didn't make like the plays that he made last season at Alabama. You thought coming to Texas, I mean, you have Matthew Golden here. You have the star tight end with Helm. I mean, you lost Xavier Worthy and pretty much Adonai Mitchell.
And
so
Adonai Mitchell.
those were two key pieces that went away. So you were saying, hey, we got Isaiah Bond. That's our wide receiver 1, and he wasn't even a wide receiver 2 or 3 in this offense. So I think that you could say that's a bigger disappointment. But, yeah, Quinn Ewers, definitely not the season that I had in mind. But, hey, the future is bright for them. Arch Manning, he's going to step right in there. I'm sure that Texas fans are going to be excited for 2025. It is a tough one. I mean, this is 2 back-to-back years that Texas has made it to the semifinal and lost in back-to-back fashions, one to Washington, this year to Ohio State. So we'll see if Texas can get over the hump and make it to the national title in 2025. Because I think that with the roster they have coming back next year, they're going to be the early favorites to get back there. But Ohio State, Notre Dame, we'll get to that matchup in just a few moments. But we have our final SEC Talk Bowl game picks. And Wade, congratulations, you won it. There's only one game left, so there's nobody going to be catching you. So 30-16. I don't know who you're going to be picking. I'm guessing you're going to find out.
Title picks out, so
you're going to be picking, but I don't think it matters. So you're going to finish in first place. Chet actually leapfrogged both I and Jacob with 27-19. I guess he either picked Ohio State to make it far in Notre Dame. And then Tyler, myself, and Jacob, 25-21. I know I went 0 for 2. I picked both Penn State and Texas. So that is definitely not the recipe for success here in this postseason play. But congratulations to you, Wade, for winning this, because it's not easy picking bowl games, especially with all the opt-outs and the other bowl games in this playoff. I mean, it was pure chaos with the 8 and 7 seed moving on to the national championship. And speaking of the national championship, let's go ahead and waste no time. Let's go ahead and get to the big game. We'll have it here right for you. Number 8, Ohio State, and number 7, Notre Dame. You could pretty much wipe away the playoff seeds. I think that both of these teams are definitely the best teams so far, what they've been playing to the potential here in this college football playoff. But as you see there, national championship, it's in Atlanta this season. So do you have the Buckeyes or the Fighting Irish being the champs of college football this season?
I got to go with Ohio State. I just feel like there's too much talent on that offensive side of the ball, especially, and then the defense, they're locked in right now too. I don't think there'll be a ton of points in this one. I think both teams can really run the football, and they played very well on defense. I do trust Will Howard to push the ball down the field a little bit more at times if the matchup's there. But I think what impressed me the most against the win versus Texas for Ohio State was that they were able to realize that Jeremiah Smith wasn't really a part of the game plan or what they were going to be able to do, and they pivoted and they ran the football. And I think if Notre Dame wants to stack the box and shut down the run game, I think they'll be able to throw it. I just think they're very versatile on offense, and I think that defense is living up to the billing. So I'm going to go with Ohio State. They took out my championship pick in Texas, and like you, I picked Penn State. So I didn't have faith in either one of these teams, but I'm definitely a believer in the Buckeyes right now. But look, Notre Dame, I will say this. I think there's a coaching advantage there, and college football is all about momentum. So Marcus Freeman's going to bring it. It's just a matter of whether this team's healthy enough and has enough talent to pace with Ohio State. But we've seen Ohio State, not show up a couple times this year. So it's definitely possible.
Yeah, it's definitely possible, but not the past couple of games. This has been a different Ohio State team. I mean, they crushed Tennessee in the first round. They crushed Oregon. And then they beat a Texas team that a lot of people like you and I had winning it all, and that obviously is not going to happen. But this is going to be a defensive battle. Notre Dame's defense has been playing well down the stretch. I think that you could say, they haven't really played a caliber of an offense that Ohio State has, because, I mean, they played the Indiana team that, they said – had a report that their quarterback had like a torn MCL in pretty much the whole entire season. Then you don't even have Carson Beck playing with Georgia, and then obviously with Drew Rowell, that's probably the best quarterback they have faced all season. But this is a different Ohio State offense that Notre Dame's defense is going to be playing. I mean, you got the 1-2 punch of the running back with Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. So just pick your poison if you want to defend. And like you mentioned, yeah, you can't just take out Jeremiah Smith because there's also other receivers that can beat you down the field as well. I mean, you couldn't forget about Abuka. They also had that star tight end as well. I just think that Ohio State's defense is just – this whole entire team has been on a mission ever since that Michigan loss. So give me the Buckeyes in this one. It just feels like the team of destiny at this point. Nothing really against Notre Dame. I just think that there's just something about that team that flipped after the Michigan game. I don't think there's going to be too many points. I'm going to go 31-17 in this one. That's my final score. I think it's going to be close through three quarters, and like the Texas game, Ohio State's going to pull away, maybe get an interception. That pretty much seals the deal here. So give me the Buckeyes. Will we have a clean sweep on Ohio State? Yes, we will.
They flipped.
So congratulations, Notre Dame, I guess. But yeah, I think that a lot of people are going to be picking Ohio State. I mean, this is a talented team. So we will see who claims the national championship on Monday night. Definitely tune into that one. I definitely will be. So we're all rolling with the Big Ten in this one. I mean, it's been the Big Ten pretty much holding the torch here as the best conference this season. So we will see if Ohio State can get it done. All right, let's go ahead and talk about another playoffs. Let's step outside of college football just for a split second, and let's go to the NFL playoffs. As you can see here, we have the bracket. The road leads all the way to the Superdome in New Orleans. So we'll go ahead and go through the first round matchups. Like Wade said, it was pretty much blowout after blowout. I mean, the only close game was the game I actually watched was the Commanders and the Buccaneers. Former LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels had a phenomenal game, and then Zane Gonzalez had, to fix his hair like 7 times before he doinked it off of there. But a lot of disappointments, especially from the Vikings in the first round, getting absolutely dismantled by the Rams. I mean, the Broncos getting dismantled by the Bills. It was pretty much blowout city outside of that one game. But let's go on now to the divisional round. Let's go ahead and make some picks. We'll go game by game here and make our picks all the way to the Super Bowl. We had our Super Bowl picks from all of our 4 hosts. Some did well. Some did pretty terrible.
Hey, Jacob, how'd the Titans do?
Yeah, really. They have the number 1 pick. But let's go ahead and start into the NFC. Let's go ahead and rip the Band-Aid. Let's just go to the 6 versus 1 seed matchup. Washington Commanders have to go on the road to face a red-hot Detroit Lions team. So, Wade, who you got in this matchup and who moves on to the NFC Championship?
Ooh, it's going to be fun to watch Jaden Daniels against a depleted Lions defense. I mean, I think there's going to be some points here. But the Detroit fans are hungry, man. They're going to be loud. I think they'll sucker Daniels into a mistake late, as much as I hate to say it. So I think Amon-Ra St. Brown has his day against Lattimore and a iffy Washington defense at times. So there's just too much going for the Lions. I'm going to pick them to win this one. But I do think Daniels can hang around for a little bit before Detroit pulls away at the end.
I think it's going to be closer than people expect. I mean, this Washington team, this defense, I think that they definitely have the edge. Like you mentioned, the Lions defense has been dealing with a lot of injuries. I don't think that Aiden Hutchinson wouldn't be back until the NFC Championship, so this would be big if the Lions were able to get this one. But with Dave Montgomery is expected to return, so you had him.
That's
with
awesome.
A guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, and then like you just mentioned, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams. The way that Jared Goff has been playing too, I mean, he's been overshadowed by guys like Joe Burrow and also Josh Allen. But give me the Lions. I mean, I'm going to be rooting for Jaden, obviously, but it's going to be tough for anybody to beat this team at home. It's going to be a raucous atmosphere down there in Detroit. So we're both going with the Lions. Let's go on now to the next matchup. The number 4 seed Los Angeles Rams had a quote-unquote home game in Arizona in round number 1 against the Vikings. Now they have to go on the road to the number 2 seed Philadelphia Eagles. Do you see an upset here, or are you just going to go the chalk?
I see an upset. Give me the Rams. This team is hot. as hot as anybody right now. You got a veteran quarterback in Matthew Stafford. Jalen Hurts is just coming back for his second game after a concussion. There seems to be a lack of rhythm between him, Smith, and A.J. Brown. I just think this Rams team is going to win it late. I think it's going to be very close, but give me LA 24-23.
Yeah, the Rams, honestly, I'm impressed with the rookies. I mean, Jared Verse has been absolutely dominant on that defensive line. I mean, I don't think that many people thought that this Rams team would make the playoffs once again. I feel like it's just been like waiting for them to just demise. But Sean McVay, fantastic coach. Like you mentioned, Matthew Stafford, we saw him against the Vikings. When he's on this team, can pretty much beat anybody. So it's just a matter of which Stafford you get. But I'm not going to go away from my preseason pick. The Philadelphia Eagles, I had to make it to the Super Bowl. The way that Saquon, this offense, has been playing, the way that this defense as well, I really liked how they performed against Jordan Love. I mean, they're going to force interceptions, so I think that's going to be a big key in this game. So give me the Eagles playing in Philadelphia. That's always a big advantage. Could be a snow game, I mean, with the weather that we're going to be having this weekend, so that could play in favor of the home team. So give me Philly. All right, now let's go on to the AFC side. The number 4 seed Houston Texans. They dominate the Chargers 32-12. They have to face off against the 2-time defending Super Bowl champs, the Chiefs. So you have an upset here. You're just going to move on with the team that's been there every single year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty safe bet. In Arrowhead, I feel like they're warmed up. I mean, this Texans team, they're young and they're certainly a team that can make a run. I just feel like the AFC is too stacked this year for them to do that, and they drew the Chiefs here. So I'm going to go with Kansas City. Not your Texans, but you did have a good season. It's just Mahomes' time in the playoffs.
Yeah, pretty easy for me. I'm not even going to waste any time. Give me the Chiefs to move on here. I think that Houston's run-ins here. Their defense is going to have to step up in this one. I just don't really see it. Let's move on to the game. I think it's going to be of the weekend. Number 3 seed Baltimore Ravens has to go all the way to cold Buffalo and face off against the Buffalo Bills. Both of these teams, dominant performance in their first round matchup. So who do you have in this one? It could be the battle of MVP. Whoever wins this one might just seal the deal here. So you got.
Yeah, the voters are supposed to only consider the regular season, but when you have them on display here in the playoff fashion, I mean, obviously they're taking that into account. So both guys better bring their A game, and the winner, like you said, might take home the hardware. Man, this game could easily be a Super Bowl matchup, you know, if you threw the conferences aside, and for it to be a second round game is just really, really brutal for either squad. But hey, it's the playoffs. You got to be able to beat everybody, no matter the order, you know, if you want to win the Super Bowl. That being said, I'm going to go with the Bills' home field advantage here. I think Josh Allen gets the best of the Ravens. That said, I still think Lamar wins the MVP, but, you know, I think a big win here for the Bills, like we said, could tilt some of the votes. But I think Josh Allen gets it done, and he has his eyes set on matchup with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the narrative of both of these quarterbacks, because in these teams as well, like, can they get over the hump, not only make it past the divisional, but ultimately knock off the Chiefs for once and get to the Super Bowl. But yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of points in this game. Both running backs are going to get involved. Derrick Henry had a monster game against the Steelers. James Cook did as well. I mean, the Buffalo's defense stepped up. I mean, they've been up and down the past weeks of the regular season. They absolutely shut down Bo Nix after Bo Nix threw it to Patrick, and they were able to get up 7-0. But after that, it was 31-7, the final score. I'm actually going to go with the road team here. I'm going to go with Baltimore. It's tough for me to out the Buffalo Bills this early in the playoffs, but I just can't go against my preseason pick. I just think that both of those teams hasn't really changed much for me. So I'm going to go with the road upset. I don't think it's going to be both 1 and 2 seeds advancing on. There's going to be at least one higher seed So give me the Ravens. All right, let's go on to the NFC Championship. First with you, you had the 1 seed Detroit Lions facing off against the 4 seed Los Angeles Rams, the Stafford Bowl, pretty much. So who moves on to New Orleans to the Super Bowl here?
Yeah, I mean that would be very dramatic to have Stafford return to Detroit. I think he did last playoffs
Yep,
too, if I recall,
you are
and
correct.
Detroit won that one. And I think Detroit gets it done again because look, I mean, there's a good chance they're going to be playing the Eagles,
Yep.
and not even the Rams. But let's say my upset happens. I mean, Stafford's going to bring it, but I just think this Detroit team is, like you said a little bit earlier, they're getting healthier, and I think they're just one of the more complete teams in the NFL. So, give me Detroit to make it out of the NFC.
Yeah, I have 1 and 2 matchup with the Lions and the Eagles, and I'm going to go with the Lions. I mean, they're just a team of destiny, like kind of how like Ohio State is, and they made it all the way to the NFC Championship last season. Usually, the 1 seeds kind of have a little bit of trouble in that first game, so I think that they could probably struggle against Washington, but if they get past that one, they get Philadelphia in their home building. Like I mentioned, I just don't think that Detroit's going to lose at home. So give me the Lions. I think they punched their ticket to the Super Bowl. So now let's move on to the AFC Championship. You have the Chiefs and the Bills. Who do you got? Do you have the Chiefs moving back to the Super Bowl, or do you have Josh Allen and the Bills finally breaking through?
I got Allen, man. I'm riding with Josh Allen. I think either one of these quarterbacks that gets out of that game this week could do it. Mahomes has played great, but I think this team is kind of missing its traditional edge. I mean, look, I wouldn't want to play them, but I think they're beatable, um, even though it's only been done once this year. But who was it done by? Josh Allen and the Bills. So
Yep.
let's go 2-0. He finally gets his playoff revenge against Kansas City. Could spice it up and even come in overtime. That would be pretty wild. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I just think this Bills team has really impressed me because I personally thought they were going to take a step back. I didn't even pick them to win the division this year. I thought that they mishandled free agency. They traded Stephon Diggs. They really didn't make an effort to bring in any other big name receivers. I wasn't really sold on James Cook as a feature back. I thought they needed to bring in some veteran competition, to be a power back, and he's rushed for over 10 touchdowns this year. So this team just really surprised me. They lost a lot of talent on defense, and that defense looks sharp as ever, really, minus a few shootouts here and there. So, yeah, give me Buffalo in the mild upset against Kansas City, and I guess the three-peat is off.
Yep, the three-peat's off the table. I have the Chiefs and the Ravens. I'm not going to be that boring person that picks just both 1 seeds. I'm going to go with Baltimore. I think they're making back to the Super Bowl. Last time they were in it was in New Orleans, so maybe they have just something going on. But I think the addition of Derrick Henry has obviously been huge to this offense. And Lamar Jackson, I think that he's going to be the difference maker if this were to play out this one. So even if Buffalo advances, I do like Buffalo. I mean, I think that everybody and their mothers are rooting against Kansas City at this point because who wants to see them win 3 Super Bowls in a row? So I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens. I think that Lamar, like Josh Allen, gets over the hump this season. So you have the Lions and the Bills. Who wins it all in the Big Easy?
Well, in the preseason, I picked Lions and Bengals.
Yeah.
Not the worst pick. I mean, the Bengals were the odd man out of the
If they
playoffs.
beat the Patriots game 1, they would have been in.
Yeah. And look, I mean, the way Burrows played against the Bills, there's a good chance that we're not talking about the Bills in this matchup because that would have been the 7-2 game. So I'm not too upset with my preseason pick. Got the Lions there. So I guess I'll stick with my guns. I'll go with Detroit. In this one, we saw these two teams play earlier in the year. It was a shootout. As good as Josh Allen is, I just think Detroit is a more complete football team. I think they run the ball super well. It would really be a coin toss for me, but yeah, I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions to get over the hump and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think that that's my pick. That's my pick as well. I mean, I'm going to be rooting for this team. If they beat Jaden, I mean, if Jaden wins, shoot, then just going to be a Commanders fan the whole way. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Lions over the Ravens. That would be a fantastic matchup. Boy, that would be a lot of points scored in that one. Probably like a 34-31 type of game. But I just think that this is Detroit's year. I mean, even with a banged up defense, they just continue to like find ways to win. I just don't know how you stop this offense. Somebody's gonna have to do it. I just don't think anybody does it. So give me Detroit. And like we both picked Texas to win it all in college, and now we're both picking the Lions. So hopefully this time works out better for us. So we're all rocking with Detroit on this show to hoist the Lombardi Trophy down there in New Orleans. All right, let's go back to SEC. Couple of hot topics, mainly surrounding on transfer news and declarations to the NFL draft. The first one shouldn't be a surprise, especially if you're a Texas fan. Quinn Ewers is declaring for the NFL draft, so it's now officially Arch Manning's time to shine. So Quinn Ewers, is this a good or bad decision for him?
I respect it. I think it's a good decision. I mean, obviously Texas wants to move on to Arch Manning. The expectation was that he would be ready for the NFL. Some people said he could use it as an opportunity to transfer, boost his stock, make more money in NIL, but he's done plenty of that at Texas. And honestly, it's a pretty down quarterback class.
Yep.
I mean, I still think he latches on in the first 3 rounds. And honestly, if you're a contender, maybe such as the Rams that have an aging quarterback, and you're not going to be in line to pick Sanders or Cam Ward, and you just kind of want a good value pick, I mean, why not take him? I mean, at times he's shown flashes of being a first-round pick. So I think if he lands in the right situation, such as LA or Detroit, something like that, I think that honestly he could end up having a pretty good situation. So I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the next news. A surprising news, not where he went, but Carson Beck felt like he was going to be going to NFL draft. He declared, and he was like, nope, going into the transfer portal, going down there in Miami. So obviously Georgia is going to be left with some question marks at the quarterback position. But you think that this is a good fit for Carson Beck going to Miami? Obviously, they're going to be losing Cam Ward and now entering Carson Beck now. So how do you think Miami is going to be doing Carson Beck here next season?
Well, I think the system's there. I mean, we saw Cam Ward come in as an experienced quarterback. He's a guy that could have gone pro last year and kind of been a middle round pick. And now I don't think he falls out the top 5. Carson Beck is a guy that we thought would be a top 5 pick going into the season. It just really didn't pan out that way for him. I still think he could have been a back half of the first round, maybe a second or third round pick. If he had gone pro, like I said, the quarterback class isn't great, but I think he does have potential to be a top 5 pick still. And the only way he was going to recoup that is if he came back to college. I don't really know what went down with Georgia, if he didn't want to go back there, if they didn't want him. But I think Miami is a good spot for him. Obviously he'll play right away. The system's there. A little bit lesser competition than what Georgia faces, but it's obviously a huge risk because if he doesn't prove himself there, I mean, he could really just tank his draft value, but make a lot of money while he's still in college. So true. I can't hold him. What you thinking? I thought the whole situation was just kind of odd.
Yeah, it's odd. I mean, obviously in this age of NIL, somebody drops a bag. I mean, I'll take a couple of million and go down to Miami. Obviously, there's some things off the field that was in this, but I think it's a good fit for him. Cam Ward played well in this system of Miami, and like you mentioned, the ACC is not like the SEC. It's not going to face the competition, but like you mentioned, there's definitely some risk. If he has like a dud of a season, then his draft stock is obviously, because the quarterback class next year is definitely going to be better than what this year's class is. So it's definitely a risk. But, hey, if he leads Miami to the college football playoff, I definitely think that's a reward in itself. Speaking of awards, Lenore Sellers named the National Offensive Player of the Year. I think I meant to say Freshman Offensive Player of the Year in that. But yeah, if he was named National Offensive Player of the Year, then South Carolina fans would be throwing a ticker tape parade. But Lenore Sellers heading into 2025, you got to be buying him, especially in SEC fantasy. But the way that Lenore Sellers finish out this season, how do you think that Sellers is going to fare in 2025? Do you think he's one of the best quarterbacks returning in the conference next season?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the SEC, potentially top 3. Only thing that concerns me is South Carolina didn't really go get him any weapons.
Yeah.
They did have to spend a lot of NIL money to keep Lenore Sellers. And fellow freshman Dylan Stewart, with the Gamecocks. So that plays into it. But I'd have to look at the transfer portal results and the incoming class. But I still think South Carolina is lacking a big-time receiver. Plus, his tight end, Josh Simon, is on to the NFL as well. So I'm a little worried about the weapons overall for this team, but hey, we know Sellers can do it with his legs. They're going to be entering in a new running back as well, so he's going to have to. So yeah, I'm sold on Sellers. I don't know if I'm sold on the whole team yet. We're going to have to see how they respond to some of the losses they've had. But if they add the right pieces, I mean, this team could be very dangerous.
Some more Georgia news, more declaration as well. Trevor Etienne has decided to declare for the NFL draft. Not the season that I had in mind for Trevor Etienne this season. He was dominant at Florida, transferred to Georgia. Do you think this was a little bit too early for him to declare, or do you think that he should have stayed for one more year?
I mean, another guy that maybe the portal didn't really pan out for him. But I'm still in the camp of if you're a running back, you got to go get yours. You got to make the money while you can, while you're healthy. One tidbit of information I learned on Twitter is that the ETN family, every time we watch them, they tell us they're from Louisiana, and it's, just always a fun fact. Well, to expand upon that, despite being from Louisiana, the ETNs absolutely hate playing in the Superdome because Trevor Etienne is 0-2 in that building with losses to Alabama and LSU. Then he declares for the draft, and he's having a terrific rookie preseason camp. Final preseason game of the year. It's just supposed to be a tune-up, get a couple carries. Well, he tears I think it was his Achilles. So he missed his entire rookie season because of an injury that happened in the Dome. Well, then his brother gets his first crack at the Dome 2 weeks ago, and they get throttled by Notre Dame. So the ETNs want nothing to do with homecoming. He does not want to be a Saint. It's just how it goes, and tough luck for those guys. But yeah, I think it's time for him to kind of take his talents to the NFL. It is a very good running back class, though, so that would be the only thing. Maybe next year he could have gotten drafted a little higher, but it's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, with the season he had, he's probably going to be a day 3 guy, like a round 4, round 5 type of guy. But hey, if he definitely has the talent, if he could put it all together, NFL go into a system, I think that he could definitely be a steal in the draft. Those are our hot topics, and now let's close the book here on 2024 and head a little bit into 2025 since we have really no questions from our viewers. I'm going to give you some questions. We're going to go through a couple of them. Verse 1, which player are we most excited to watch in 2025?
Oh, man, we just talked about him. Lenore Sellers. I mean, let's go big here. It could be like a Cam Newton season, or it could be, I don't know, like just, just an average dual threat season. Almost, I don't want to say like the one he just had because I think he did have a good season, but you know what I'm getting at. Is it going to be the big season, or is it going to be kind of like let's say like Jalen Milroe this year, where there was flashes of excellence, and then at the end of the day, it was just kind of a raw prospect. So I'm looking forward to seeing if he can make the big leap. What about yourself?
I'm going to go with another quarterback. I'm going to go with a guy that's been waiting in the wings behind Quinn Ewers, and that is Arch Manning. I'm definitely excited what he could do. I mean, he's going to have the keys to the car now. I mean, he's not going to have Matthew Golden anymore. He's not going to have Isaiah Bond. So what playmakers? You'll have two of the running backs here with Wisner and Blue. But how is Arch Manning? I mean, all the Texas fans like, oh, this is the guy. Now the guy is here, so I'm excited to see what he does, especially against SEC competition. And Texas is going to be a legitimate threat next season. It's not they're going to be going away anytime soon. That defense is still going to be really good, and the offense, you know what Steve Sarkisian could do in the recruiting class and also in the transfer portal. So I'm excited to see what Arch Manning does in his first year as a starting quarterback for Texas. So two quarterbacks that we're most excited to watch in 2025. Now let's go on to the coach. What coach has the most pressure heading into 2025? I'll go. Brian Kelly has the most pressure heading into 2025.
I think so.
Honestly, if he doesn't make the college football playoff this season, a lot of LSU fans are going to be grabbing their pitchforks and going to the athletic administration offense and just handing a dollar bill until the buyout is reached already, because this is heading into year number 4 now. The way that Brian Kelly has been able to build in the offseason through the transfer portal, he's finally had enough of just like sitting back and watching everybody else get the players. I think that LSU has a good enough roster to make the playoffs. And if he has like an 8-4, 9-3 season again, I think that this could definitely be the final season that we see of Brian Kelly. So Wade, what coach do you think has the most pressure in the SEC?
I mean, I think you nailed it there with Brian Kelly, but let's look at a couple other situations. One being, teams that have to win or their coach is probably going to get fired. And I think that you look at the cellar dwellers in that situation, Mississippi State, Arkansas, even though they were better this year. Kentucky has kind of fallen in that category with Stoops. They've gotten complacent there. So I think all those guys have pretty equal pressure on themselves. But I want to pose an interesting one to you, and that's Steve Sarkisian. I mean, look, the guy's not going to get fired. I don't think there's anything they could do next year that would get him fired on the field. But we've been talking about Arch Manning. Let's assume that he pans out. He's as advertised. The defense is going to be good. So should those things happen, Texas is probably going to be back in the SEC championship, back in the playoff. But if they get to the Final Four again and they don't win, I mean, Texas fans are going to be so mad to go 3 years in a row. It kind of seems like they've got the skill position players this next go around. They're good at running back. They got 2 5-star receivers thanks to NIL. I just don't think there's any excuse to keep losing these semifinal games. And I think he could find himself kind of on the hot seat. Again, they're not going to fire him, but Texas fans are not going to like that if they don't break through. I think they got to win and get to the national championship.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point there. I mean, it's not like he's going to get fired or anything, but sooner or later, Texas fans are going to want a ring eventually, because they've been getting to the semifinals pretty much back-to-back years now, and 3 more years, that would definitely irk them if they can get over.
Could be our answer next season if they lose.
Absolutely. All right, let's go on to buying and selling. Which team are we buying in 2025? Wade, you can go first.
I'm going to be an optimist. I am going to buy into the LSU Tigers. I'm also going to buy into the Florida Gators. They're a team that I think not going to win a national championship because of that schedule, but I think they're ahead of schedule. And, I think Florida's looking at potentially a 10-win season, but probably more of an 8 or 9-win season. And I think you nailed it with LSU.
Yep.
I'm buying into it. I think this is a 10-win team. Depending on who those 2 losses are to, you could potentially be in Atlanta playing for an SEC championship in the college football playoff for the first time in this new format. I'm buying the Tigers and the Gators.
I'm also buying the Gators too. I think that if you've been like watching this show, you kind of like listen to my voice of how I talk about Florida. I know it's a tough schedule. They pretty much have to play the same schedule that they did this season, so it's not going to be easy. But DJ Lagway coming back, that's obviously going to be huge for that offense. I think you saw the defense rapidly improve as well. And you saw the guys get behind Billy Napier, a guy that we thought wouldn't even be the coach heading into next season. Yeah, I really like Florida. Like you mentioned, I don't think that this is going to be necessarily a playoff team. Could they surprise us? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they make it to the playoff. I mean, they could get to 9 wins or 10 wins. But I think that Florida, they could be an 8-win, 9-win team heading into next season. You look up, there'll be a top 25 team. It wouldn't shock me. So give me Florida, especially with everybody returning and the guys that they're getting in the transfer portal as well. I think that Billy Napier is building a solid program. So give him a couple of years. I think that 2025 is going to be the first step to Florida bouncing back and potentially make it to the playoff. Now, there's always, when we're buying, we're also got to be selling. Which team are you not buying in 2025?
I think Tennessee's probably going to take a step back. You know, they made the playoff. It wasn't because of the quarterback play. Nico's still got a lot to prove in my book. And I think they're going to be losing some talent on defense, if I'm not mistaken. So he's got to make a huge leap at quarterback, I think, if the team's going to live up to what they did this past year. I think personally they're going to fall behind a team like Florida in the pecking order and LSU. They're not going to fall to the bottom, but yeah. I mean, I think LSU, South Carolina, Florida, Ole Miss could all be better teams, which are all teams that Tennessee slightly outperformed last year. So I think they're more of a middle of the pack team.
Man, from one season going from our dark horse team and talking so highly of them, you have them going right back down to earth in Tennessee. I have another team going back down to earth, and that's going to be Ole Miss. I mean, losing Jackson Dart, you're going to feel it next season. All the guys that you got in the transfer portal are no longer going to be on this roster. Like, no Trey Harris, no Jordan Watkins. I mean, all of your best players on offense are going to be gone. Then the defense, you're also going to be losing some talent. And obviously the schedule is the same as this season, but teams on that schedule are improving. It's not like they lost to the Florida team, the same Florida team that's going to be way better next season. A&M is probably going to be improving next season as well. And then LSU, we talked about them. So I think that Ole Miss, I just don't see them as a playoff team. I think that they're going to go back to like 8 wins. That's my pick for them. So the teams that we were high on heading into this season, we're not too high on heading into next season.
We forgot a team, though.
Oh, who was it?
For your previous question, or for the coach question, and for selling, and I think we both agree on this, Oklahoma. I mean, Venables could be a guy looking for a defensive coordinator job or some property in Florida at the end of the year. And I think that program, I mean, I think they're in rebuild mode personally. And honestly, obviously it's a good program historically, but I think they're going to find life in the SEC pretty tough. I mean, it's just going to be hard to play at that level year in, year out. All these teams, I mean, Alabama's seeing it, LSU seeing it. It's just going to be that much harder to win 10 games consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, one more bullet point to get to, and it is our way too early SEC championship matchup picks. I know that this is going to change once we get to our preview show, and we'll actually know who the hell is on the team, who's starting, and who's going to be playing what position. So, Wade, you want to give a crack at it of who are going to be the top 2 teams facing off in Atlanta next season?
I think I had Texas and Ole Miss, or Texas and Missouri a season ago. So not awful. I doubted the Bulldogs. I'm going to buy into the Texas hype. I think they get back. So give me Texas. And honestly, I think it's got to be a team Texas doesn't play in the regular season for this to work out. Call me a homer, but Texas LSU.
I got the same. Oh, my gosh. All right. We're on the same paths already. Okay. Yeah, Texas
but
and LSU. That's what
realistically, I mean, it could be It could be Georgia. Who knows?
Yeah, well, that's just too vanilla for me. I gotta go. I know it's biased, but I'm gonna buy into the hype of LSU. So give me LSU in Texas. We'll see what it happens. Obviously, those picks might change once
We didn't talk about A&M. That's kind
Yeah,
of
we didn't
scary.
talk about A&M. That could definitely be a team to watch. So obviously we'll have more info, more knowledge of these teams once we get to our preseason. But that is our way too early SEC championship picks. We're both rocking with Texas and LSU. So Wade, before we close out the show, any closing words on another season of SEC talk?
No, it was a wonderful season again with you, Tyler. I mean, every year I think we say this, but it definitely flies by.
Oh, yeah.
But it was fun having a little added football coverage this year with the expanded playoffs and the new conferences. I mean, it was a lot to take in back in August, but I think it all played out quite nicely. It was cool seeing Oregon play Ohio State and Penn State during the season, and then again in the playoffs. So I don't know about you, but I do like the format. I think that it's good for the sport and it gives us a little bit more to cover. So I'm looking forward to another year next year. I think we're gonna talk in the off season and come up with a new format a little bit for you guys and reintroduce Sports Scramble just a smidge on the show. And so yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely stay tuned to that. We're pretty much going to be heading into a little bit of a break here. Really no content here on our YouTube channel until February. Once we'll get going. But here for SEC Talk, our next show will be in early March when we'll be talking about college basketball and our March Madness selection show. We'll also be doing a show of our mock draft. We'll be doing that as well as we usually do every single year. We'll be looking at which SEC players will be going in the top 10 in round number 1 and who our crappy Saints will be taking in the top 10. But we'll be talking about all that. Yeah, probably. So, but I appreciate everybody for tuning in to every single episode, like Wade mentioned, with more football, more shows. As you see my mom chiming in, great show until next season. Yes, this is it for our football show. It's crazy to think that SEC Talk is almost turning 10. I started this back in 2016. Really? Yeah. So we're almost 10 years old. So we're nearing our teen years. But we appreciate everybody for tuning in every single week. And we will see y'all in March when we're talking about college basketball. So do your research, watch some games.
I watched my first college basketball game of the season yesterday, so I'm getting ready.
SEC school?
Yes, I watched LSU, and then I watched the end of the Florida-Missouri game. I just finally had the time to sit down and watch some b-ball, so I'm inspired.
Yeah, not gonna lie, we might have to tune in because the SEC might just be the best conference in college basketball. It feels like every day it's just like a top 10 battle. So we might have to do a little bit more basketball content this season. So definitely stay tuned to that. Always do a show whenever we're talking about the SEC tournament. Do my bracket picks for that. So maybe we'll do a show on that. So just tune in. Just definitely keep an eye out on our Facebook page. We'll notify you if we go live at any point. But for our football season, that is it. Like you mentioned, it always goes by so fast. But for our football show, we will see y'all back in August for 2025 in our preview show. So long for now from SEC Talk.